And she saw those three priests there praying very hard, very earnestly. And what she noticed was for those three priests, she saw 1,000 demons in there with them, trying to like pull in one direction, trying to distract them from their prayers, trying to get all in their head so they wouldn't be focused on their prayers. And she was overwhelmed. She's like, oh my gosh, there's so many devils here just for these three priests. So the spiritual then told them, I'm going to take you now to the busiest city in your town. So they took St. Teresa to the busiest city. And she was expecting to see millions of demons because she saw 1,000 for three priests. And when she got there, she only saw one devil there. And he was very bored. The reason he was very bored is because everyone was already under his control. And the reason I share that story, guys, is because what you guys don't see, the closer you guys get to God, the more you'll see the temptation happen to you. It says that's why you should always have priests in your guys' prayers. Because a priest gets tempted more than any else combined. So always have priests in your guys' prayers, guys. I want to share a second story. There was a great king who only lived life for himself. He only cared about being famous. He cared about how much money he had. And one day he had a heart attack. And in his heart attack, he was on the judgment seat. And God was there to give him his judgment. And Jesus said, you only live for yourself. You only cared about your wealth, your famousness. You didn't ever care about me. And he said, I'm going to condemn you to, and right before he went to say hell, the Virgin Mary came in and pleaded with him, pleaded with her son, saying, son, I beg you, please, give him one more chance. He may not have lived great, but he wore a huge rosary as a belt. And when he wore that huge rosary as a belt, it reminded so many people in his kingdom to pray the rosary. And because of that, I want you to give him one more chance. So our Lord said, okay, only for you, mother. And the Lord gave the king another chance. And then he proclaimed the rosary the rest of his life. He ended up becoming a great saint in our church. One final story for you guys. There was a town. This town was very, very unique, where they would pick one random person from the town to become king. And they would become king for only a certain amount of time. They wouldn't know when it would end. But in the middle of the night, they would get captured, and they would get drugged into a random island where they would have to survive for many years by themselves. So they picked one man from the crowd and said, you will become king. So they gave him his crown, everyone was cheering, yay, we got a new king. And he lived his life to the fullest. He went partied, he drank a whole lot, he lived life only for himself for many years. And then, like they know, randomly in the middle of the night, burglars came in, put a bag over his head, and drugged him to an island. And in that island, he had to be alone. And he suffered and died by himself because he wasn't prepared. So then after this king gets taken away, they have to pick someone new. So they went to the crowd, and they picked the new king to become king for the town. And this guy was a little bit smarter. He was like, okay, I know that you only become king for a certain amount of years. I have to prepare myself. So he was like, what island, what direction did they take the king before? And the soldiers told him, oh, he's kind of in this direction. So what he did is, he told every week he would make people go to the island where you would be alone, and he built a fortress. He built a bunch of wood. He put a bunch of food. And he had himself prepared for that moment when it would be his last moment where they would drag him and they would take him to his place for all eternity. And just like he was planning, they drug him in there. But he lived very comfortably because he prepared himself. And this is all each one of us, guys. You guys have a certain amount of finite time before we all get called by God and we'll be judged. And once you get judged, you have to give an account. I urge you guys, this is the last thing I'm going to say, I urge you guys all to go to confession, guys. If you guys haven't gone to confession in a month, I urge you guys to go. Padre Pio used to say, even a room that no one enters into still collects dust every month. So even if you guys don't have any great moral sins, still, I urge you guys, there's so many great graces from confession. They say that one confession is worth more than 1,000 exorcisms. The power of confession is remarkable. It has changed my life personally, guys. And just like the two kings, one wasted his time living for the world, and the other one prepared himself for where his home would be permanently. Our home is not here, guys. Our home is...
Okay, thank you. No, you're awesome. Thank you.
After we get judged. So prepare for that moment. Now, that's my story for the day, guys. I want to introduce someone amazing that you guys are privileged to have here, guys.